Hey, howdy, and a big welcome back to Yak City Gaming here on Clemhawks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yak, and we are ready to roll for MLB The Show 22 here on YouTube for the first time for me so far into early release. If I've got this correct, the game launches tomorrow. So that's the interesting note. We've got one day to play with, and I figured we better talk a couple of basics, especially for everybody who will be joining the MLB The Show community tomorrow here on YouTube and, of course, on their video game consoles back home as well. So, if you don't know a little bit about me, I do a little bit of sales for a living, so that's where I'm just going to allude to that. And I'm going to minimize myself here a little bit, and we're going to talk quickly about kind of how to take a salesman approach to the MLB The Show market this year. You could call this how to get stubs fast. You could do that. And obviously I'm going to title it up, as you've seen, a little bit differently than what the video actually is, just simply because you got to grab those eyeballs, get them in here, and give them the good stuff once they get in here. And that's exactly what we're doing. So number one, obviously the community market, right? You've got your players, you've got your equipment, you've got your sponsors, you've got your stadiums, you got your unlockables, and your perks this year as well. And there you have it. That's kind of the list of the categories of stuff you can sell. And within MLB The Show's player cards, you've got flashbacks, you've got gold, diamond, legends, you've got silvers, you've got all kinds of different classes of things here in MLB The Show. So the first kind of salesman approach thing I'm going to take you to is just, I'm going to use the Blue Jays as an example. But what I'm going to take you through right now is just how to, on day one tomorrow, when you have no stubs to play with, how to kind of turn that around as quickly as possible. This isn't make stubs fast. This is how to do it the smart way, use your brain, and be a salesman on the market, right? This is a market. A market requires a salesman to have product available. And of course, a smart salesman will make profit off the sales, which if you're doing it the best way you can, you're going to make it fast. You get where I'm going? You absolutely do. So here we go. Let's go get this going down to the Toronto Blue Jays here. Bing bang. All right, you look at this. Right off the top, is anyone day one without buying stubs owning MLB The Show 22 tomorrow morning or tonight whenever it comes out, day one officially? And of course logging in with 0 stubs, 500, whatever they give you for the first collection. Is anyone going to be able to afford Vladimir Guerrero Jr. without opening a pack or without any of that kind of luck? Probably not. But here's how to take your first steps. If you're a Blue Jays fan like me, or if you're looking for somebody else on a different team. So right here, you go over to the lowest tiered players. Why are we going to the lowest tiered players, Tyson? Because this is where you're going to make your margin, essentially. This is where you're going to be able to get in there and get something going. So obviously, I guess the other side of the coin too is return on investment is what you want to be looking. So if you put 200 stubs down into investing in players, or that full 500, whatever you want to do with that first little bit of stubs you get for doing the starter stuff here in MLB The Show 22. As you see, I'm already up to 60,000, so keep that in mind. I bought the digital deluxe. I did some monkeying around to get my stubs early on, just so as I could kind of get going and have fun doing it my way, get collections done, and just be able to manipulate the market a little bit more in my favor. Right? But that's just where we find ourselves early on. So this is applicable to anyone with any sort of level of stubs, open to the entry level, and that's why we're starting right here for the Blue Jays at Andrew Vasquez, right? You look at him here, 8 stubs to 48. How many times does 8 stubs go into 48? Well, you tell me. That's 6 times, right? 48 divided by 8 is 6 times. So for roughly 6 Andrew Vasquez's, an investment of 48 stubs, I'm going to be able to sell them roughly at about 48. Of course, you'll see here if I go to buy sell and sell at 48, there's going to be a market tax of 10%. So you've got a tax in there that cuts into your profit margin, and that's going to cost you a little bit as well. So on 48 stubs, you're making 43 stubs. That's your basic kind of math there. So right there, 43 minus 8 gets you 35 stubs as soon as you sell that card. Now, as you see, it's actually up to 50 right now as the market goes and fluctuates here on the final day of pre-release. However, you kind of see that math working out, right? And on that, a 35%, 35% or 30 stub cut, that's 4.5 almost times you can now go reinvest in Andrew Vasquez to make that. So you're getting that 8 stubs back 4.5 times over. So that's a pretty good solid return on investment. That's what, 450% return on investment essentially every time you invest in Andrew Vasquez for 8 stubs and sell him for 48. You get that? That's where we're looking. That's the kind of stuff you want to look at when you are opening day one. You want to look at hustling the cards as fast as possible to try and make as many stubs as possible early on to get where you want to go as soon as possible. And this is open to those guys that want to be free to play, right? Is the biggest thing you're going to have success with in MLB The Show 22, making stubs, is being a smart salesman, sitting there thinking, okay, can I take advantage of this? And that's where you get into step 2. And I don't have to touch the controller for this one. You can kind of actually back out to the main menu, and I want to see if they have this same thing here this year. They don't, but in years previous they kind of had a market chart and stuff there as well. And that's where step 2 of this is you take those practices, right? Profit margin and return on investment. If you can find a better profit margin with a lower return on investment and you can move it a little faster, might not be a bad thing to go out there and get this done. I'm actually going to enlarge this so you can kind of see me talk this over one more time with you. But you get where I'm going, right? If you can kind of get a bigger profit margin for a less return on investment, right? You're investing all in one card, and that's all the amount of cards you can afford at one time is one, but you're flipping it every 10 seconds. Well, eventually you're going to get somewhere pretty quick within the next 5 minutes. So that's not necessarily the worst part, but that's where step 2, as I'm trying to still get to it and I can't seem to spit it out here for you, is simply put, noticing trends. Identifying trends within the market here on MLB The Show, figuring out how those trends affect you as a salesman on the market, trying to make as many stubs as quick and fast and easy as possible, right? All those buzzwords you see in the title of the MLB The Show videos, just like this one here telling you how to get stubs, is you want to go out there and be effective on the market. You want to go out there and have that free-to-play team from day one all the way to MLB The Show 23 and beyond. It's simply, you got to remember 2 things: profit margin, return on investment, identify the trends, and figure out how they all correlate. And that's a big part, right? If you can figure out, okay, all right, I've got the time, I can invest it in somebody like Andrew Vasquez of the Blue Jays, who's going for an 8 stubs buy now. So you buy him at 8 stubs, sell him at that 48, make those 43 stubs, you profit 35 stubs, and you just continually have the time in the day on day one as you're just firing up Diamond Dynasty and waiting for the servers to get a little bit better, and you have that time to build that stub bank, right? 35 at a time. If you're flipping 3 a minute, right? That is essentially 105 stubs a minute. And for starting with 0, by the time you're done 12 minutes, you now have enough for a standard pack in MLB The Show, right? 1,250 stubs, actually 1,260 within 10 minutes. And if you can kind of diversify and allow yourself to make a little bit more margin somewhere else, well then suddenly, hey, not necessarily a bad thing, right? If you can get into those higher tiered cards that are flipping a little bit faster for a little less return on investment, right? You're only making 206 stubs off of, say, a 500 stub investment. So, right, 725 or something, I guess 795. You're selling it for, and you're buying it for 500, but you're flipping that bang, bang, bang. As soon as you put it up, as soon as you go to put in a buy order, it's going to town. Well, my friends, look at yourselves. You're making stubs as quick as you would if you were doing the Andrew Vasquez method, just not getting that return on investment. Instead, you're getting that profit margin that is just as important, right? It's a kind of lower profit margin and return on investment, but technically speaking, compared to Vasquez, it's a bigger profit margin because you're making a bigger chunk of stubs overall, right? So that's a big thing. It's a big thing. You can look at it that way. and just kind of take that approach. And I think that's where I welcome you to use a salesman approach. You think with your head, use those trends, identify trends, find how it correlates with both margin and return on investment. And of course, the last thing I got to say is when you have that opportunity to find extra margin within cards, right? Just because Andrew Vasquez is going for 48 stubs on the market right now, as you saw, as soon as I clicked into him, he was going for 50. Well, why wouldn't you try and, okay, maybe this is going to trend up, get ahead of the curve and put him at 53. Now on that 10% tax, you're getting about 40, what? I guess you'd get about 46 stubs, 45 stubs out of that. And guess what? Now you've made that 3 extra stubs. And if you put 10 cards there, 3 extra stubs on 10 cards, that's 30 extra stubs for doing no more work. Talk about return on investment for doing nothing more than you were already doing. Look at that. Bang, done. This sales speech complete. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tyson. This is Yak City Gaming. I got another YouTube channel. I'm sure you can find me out there in the wild, but you get where I'm going. Also nicknamed Yak. Clem will call me Yak. Up on out of here.